Hello and welcome to another helpful and practical episode of the SpeakNest English Podcast Zone, where English becomes part of your daily life. In today's episode, we're going to talk about something you already know very well. Your daily routine. From waking up to going to sleep, you do hundreds of small actions every day. Now, let's learn to express them confidently in English.
And today we're really going to get into something, well, it seems basic, but it's so useful. Daily routines in English.
Yeah, it sounds simple, right? But our goal here, in this deep dive, is to show you why talking about your daily routine is actually much more than just listing tasks.
It's
kind of key, really, to unlocking better communication overall.
Exactly. Think about it. It's like the foundation for describing your life in English, isn't it? How you organize your day, your habits, the things you do regularly. That's all core stuff. Comes up constantly.
And it's just so practical. I mean, think about it. Introducing yourself?
Yep.
Or maybe an interview, talking about how you work.
Oh, absolutely. Work-style questions.
Or even just, chatting with someone new, sharing a bit about your day. It's language you need all the time.
Right. And okay, here's a really interesting angle. Getting good at describing your routine in English. It's not just about knowing the words. Because these are things you do every day. Talking about them repeatedly actually helps you start, thinking in English.
That's such a key point. It's the repetition, isn't it?
Yeah.
The repetition built into routines creates this almost natural framework for learning. You're using the same verbs, the same time phrases.
Over and over.
Over and over. And it drills that vocabulary and sentence structure in, sometimes without you even, consciously trying too hard.
Okay, let's explore that a bit. I mean, our sources definitely back this up. Daily routines are often one of the first things people learn in English.
And it makes total sense.
Why?
Because it's tangible, it's relatable. You can connect the language directly to actions you actually perform.
Right, from day one, basically.
Exactly. And if you think bigger picture, how often do you talk about your day just normally in your own language?
All the time. It's basic social interaction.
Right, is how we connect. So being able to do that smoothly in English, that lets you connect with people on a really fundamental level.
So the why is really stacking up here. It's useful straight away in loads of situations. It says something about who you are, your discipline, your structure.
Yeah, your lifestyle.
And maybe most importantly for learners, it actually helps build that bridge to thinking in the language. We're not just, learning lists of phrases off by heart.
No, it's about building a real foundation for talking more naturally, more confidently.
So what do you think is the most immediate win for someone focusing on this?
Good question. For me, I think it's probably how it makes those first interactions less daunting.
Okay, yeah. Confidence boost.
Yeah, exactly. If you have some ready-to-go ways to talk about your typical day, you feel more prepared, right?
Yeah.
Starting a conversation feels easier.
That makes sense. It's giving yourself the tools for everyday stuff.
Precisely.
Right.
Making English feel less like this abstract school subject.
Right.
And more like something practical you can actually use immediately.
And that's really what we're aiming for here, isn't it? To give you that practical grasp and hopefully, a bit of encouragement too, to start actively thinking about your own day in English terms.
It really is about giving your everyday life an English voice. By working on these sort of foundational bits, you're empowering yourself.
Yeah.
You get to express a real part of who you are and connect better with people who speak English.
Absolutely. So maybe after listening, as you go about your day, just try to notice what English words could you use for what you're doing right now. It feels like a small thing, but it could actually be a pretty big step on your language journey.
And think about the details, too. Not just, I eat breakfast. Is it like I grab a quick coffee, or maybe I sit down for a proper breakfast?
Oh, that's a great point. The nuances.
Yeah, those little differences. Weekdays versus weekends, maybe?
Yeah.
Thinking about how you do things really adds richness. It makes your English sound much more, natural and expressive.
That's so true. It's not just the big actions, but the little descriptive words, the adverbs, the adjectives that paint the real picture.
Exactly right. So I guess the main takeaway is don't underestimate talking about your daily routine. It might seem basic, but mastering it, that's foundational.
Yeah.
It pays off immediately in practical ways, and it seriously helps build your overall fluency and just your confidence in speaking English.
Okay, so just to recap quickly, we've really dug into why daily routines are such a cornerstone for communicating in English.
Yeah, we've looked at the practical side, how it helps with intros, interviews, just chatting,
Right.
and also how it strengthens that ability to actually think in English, which is huge.
So here's a final thought, maybe something for you to chew on. Think about your routine. What are the really specific things, maybe even unique things, that define your day?
The personal touches.
Yeah. How would you start to explain those things in English if you were meeting someone for the very first time? That's kind of where the learning gets really personal, right?
Definitely. That's where it starts to make a real difference. Great to be here.
So today we're diving into something pretty fundamental, actually. It's about how we talk about our daily routines in English.
Right.
We've got a lesson source here that's focused on giving you some, well, better ways to describe what you do every day. Our mission basically is to pull out the most useful, maybe the most interesting bits so you can talk about your daily life with a bit more flair, maybe, and precision.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when you think about it, how much of our day-to-day chat revolves around habits and routines.
Totally.
Making small talk, explaining your schedule, being able to talk about your routine clearly, effectively. It's really key.
It really is.
So yeah, having a richer vocabulary for this stuff, it can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Now, our source material, it jumps into some, let's say, upgraded words pretty fast.
It does.
But maybe let's just quickly touch on the absolute basics. You know, the framework.
Good idea. Like the building blocks.
Exactly. Waking up, breakfast, going to work or school, lunch, finishing work, heading home, dinner, bed. You know, the standard sequence.
That's the skeleton, right? The structure most days hang on. And that's where our source gets interesting, introducing those bonus words, ways to add a bit more depth and efficiency too.
Okay, let's get into those then. The first one highlighted is commute, defined simply as travel to work or school.
Right.
What strikes me here is how much meaning is packed into that one word.
It's true. Commute, it instantly flags up a regular journey, doesn't it? For a specific reason, work, study.
Yeah, it's not just random travel.
Exactly. It's that repeated trip, home to work, home to uni, back again. Think about saying, I travel to my job every single day versus I commute to work.
Much shorter.
It is shorter, but it also carries that sense of like routine, purpose. It just lands differently.
It really does. It paints a picture of that daily rhythm. You know, probably the same route, same-ish time.
One word, commute, and you understand it's this regular, established part of their life. Much smoother than spelling it all out.
Definitely more efficient. Adds a layer of understanding that just saying travel doesn't quite get across.
Precisely. You almost picture the whole process involved.
Okay, so the second bonus word, errands. This is defined as small tasks like shopping. Another one of those useful shortcut words, it feels like.
Oh, absolutely. Errands is great because it bundles together all those little miscellaneous tasks you need to do, usually short things outside of your main work or study block.
Right.
The source uses shopping, which is a perfect example.
Yeah.
But what else might you call an errand?
Oh, loads of things. Picking up the dry cleaning,
Yeah,
popping to the post office, maybe a quick stop at the bank.
definitely. Or returning a library book, like you mentioned earlier.
Right. Little jobs.
Exactly. Those little to-dos that sort of clutter up the edges of the day sometimes.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, okay, this afternoon I need to go shopping, then swing by the post office and then drop off this book.
Which is a mouthful.
It is. You just say, I've got some errands to run. Much cleaner.
Much more efficient. It conveys the general idea, you know, without needing all the tiny details unless you actually want to share them.
That's it. You communicate that block of activity efficiently.
So, thinking about using these words, commute, errands, how does that actually change things for someone learning or improving their English? It seems like more than just knowing extra words.
It is. It's about precision, really,
Yeah.
and conciseness. Using words like these makes you sound more, well, fluent,
Fluent. Yeah.
because you're using the specific term that native speakers would often reach for. It shows a deeper grasp of how these activities fit into daily life.
It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly. You're painting a clearer picture, but with fewer brushstrokes.
Like upgrading from, I don't know, a basic screwdriver set to having the specific Phillips head or flathead you need does the job better, faster.
That's a great analogy. And these aren't super obscure words either, are they?
No, not at all.
But they carry a lot of communicative weight. They're efficient.
So I guess the main takeaway from this deep dive is pretty clear. Adding words like commute, and errands to your active vocabulary, it can really boost your English when you're talking about everyday life.
Definitely. They're specific, they save time, and they help you sound more natural, more confident.
Okay, so just to wrap up, here's something maybe to think about. We've looked at these 2 specific words for daily activities. But think about other parts of your life. Your job, maybe. Your hobbies. Your interests.
Right, like specialized language for different areas.
Exactly. How many other specific, useful words like commute or errands exist for those areas in English?
That's a really interesting thought.
And how could learning and using those words help you talk about those parts of your life with even more clarity, more impact?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much richer your descriptions could become by finding those perfectly targeted words for all the different facets of your experience.
Yeah.
Something to explore. Today we're looking at a piece of advice, something really practical actually, that could help make your English sound, well, more natural pretty quickly.
We've got this source. It's a section from a resource on talking about daily routines in English.
Right, and it focuses specifically on how to, get past just listing things.
Exactly. The title is something like Add Emotion or Humor to Sound Natural. And our mission really for this deep dive is to pull out the key techniques.
Yeah, so you can stop sounding like you're just reading off a schedule, maybe.
Precisely. Make it sound like you're actually, sharing your day, connecting.
Because let's face it, just saying, I woke up, I ate breakfast, I went to work, it's a bit flat, isn't it?
It really is. So the core idea of the source push is, look, don't just list your tasks. Simple, but quite powerful.
And the why behind it is interesting. It's not just about getting information across.
No, it's about adding feeling. The source really emphasizes that. Just a little hint of how you felt. It changes everything.
It really does. They have this great little example. Instead of, I wake up at 6 a.m. boring,
Yeah.
they suggest adding something like, but I hit snooze 5 times.
Yes. That's perfect. It adds so much personality.
Instantly relatable, right? You almost feel that struggle to get out of bed.
And that's the connection point, that little bit of shared struggle or, humanness. It makes you seem more approachable.
Lowers the barriers, kind of. Okay, so emotion is one thing. What else?
Well, the source brings up humor, too. Using humor to make your routine sound more engaging, more natural.
Which makes sense. Life isn't always serious. Even the everyday stuff has funny bits.
Totally. And the example they give is, I cook dinner. Okay, straightforward. And burn it half the time. That little bit of self-deprecation.
Right. It makes it lighthearted, memorable, adds character.
It does. Think about normal conversations, how often there are those little shared laughs about everyday mishaps.
Yeah, we don't always have to present this perfect version of our lives. The messy bits are often more interesting anyway.
True. And that leads into another point the source makes, adding personal details.
Okay, so getting specific.
Exactly. Not just general statements, but little things that are unique to your routine. It makes it feel authentic.
Gives it texture. What kind of example did they have for that?
Instead of, my alarm wakes me up, which is fine, but a bit generic.
You could say.
My cat wakes me up before my alarm does.
Oh, I love that. That's so much better. You can picture it immediately.
Right. It's specific, maybe a little funny, definitely memorable. Sparks a connection. Maybe the other person has a pet story too.
So all these things, the emotion, the humor, the personal details, they help you sound, what was the phrase they used?
Real, not robotic. I like that. It captures it well.
Real, not robotic. Yeah. Because natural conversation isn't perfect, it's got those little quirks and feelings in it.
And these techniques help you kind of mimic that natural flow.
And it's important to stress, this isn't just about sounding entertaining for the sake of it, is it? There's a real benefit for you, the listener.
Oh, absolutely. If you're learning English or just want to improve your conversations, using these simple tricks can seriously boost your skills.
Help you connect better with people.
Definitely. Because communication, well, it's more than just swapping facts, isn't it? It's about sharing a bit of your experience.
So when you add that emotion or a joke or that weird little detail about your cat,
you're inviting the other person in,
right,
making the whole exchange more, I don't know, human, more enjoyable. It builds that rapport.
Okay, so boiling it down then.
Yeah.
The key takeaway from this source, from our deep dive today, is really don't just recite your day.
Right. Weave in those human bits, the feelings, the funny moments, the things that make your routine yours. That's what makes it sound natural and engaging.
It really shifts it from just information to actual connection.
Yeah. And that leads to a kind of interesting thought for you to maybe mull over.
Okay.
How even a really tiny detail, something small and funny or maybe slightly annoying or happy about your routine, how that can actually make a surprisingly big difference in how you connect.
So, like, what's one tiny thing you could add next time?
Exactly. What's one little emotional beat or funny observation you could consciously try to include next time you talk about your day? Just see what happens. You might be surprised.
Today, we're tackling something really fundamental, our daily routines.
Yeah, everyone's got one, whether they realize it or not.
Exactly. And we've got this source material that helpfully breaks a sort of typical day down. Morning, afternoon, evening segments.
Pretty clear structure.
So our mission today is to really dig into that, pull out the key bits about these common routine elements and, see how they actually give structure to our days.
Sounds good. It's interesting how these everyday things, these habits, really form a kind of scaffolding for our lives. This source gives us a nice, simple example to jump off from.
Okay, let's dive in then. Morning routine first. The source starts with, I wake up early. Now, early. It's pretty vague, right?
Totally subjective, yeah. Early for a night owl versus a actual early bird are two very different times.
So it's less about the clock and more about what personal rhythm.
Exactly. It's often about aligning with your own body clock, your energy levels, and just the demands of your day. What feels like the right start time for you.
All right, that makes sense. Okay, next element. I make tea or coffee. Feels like a classic.
Oh, definitely. It's such a common ritual, isn't it? It's often more than just the drink itself.
Yeah, it's like a signal. Okay, the day is officially starting now.
Precisely. And these little rituals, even just making a hot drink, they're important transition markers. They give you that predictability, maybe even trigger other parts of your routine, like the smell of coffee brewing.
Get you going, yeah. Okay, then I check the news or messages. It's probably relatable for, almost everyone now. Connecting with the world.
It is. That desire to be informed, to see what's happening, what you missed. It's natural.
But is there a downside? Starting the day immediately plugged in.
Well, yeah, that's the thing to consider, isn't it? You're immediately opening the floodgates to potentially, stressful or distracting information. It can kind of set a reactive tone, maybe hijack your focus before you've even really started your day.
Good point. Something to think about, definitely. All right, let's shift to the afternoon. The source says, I have lunch around 1 p.m.
Yeah, that midday point seems pretty standard.
It highlights that need for a proper break, right? A refuel moment.
Absolutely. Around 1 p.m. often lines up with natural dips in energy for a lot of people, plus typical work schedules. And it's not just about food, it's that mental pause, a reset.
Helps you power through the rest of the afternoon, I guess.
Exactly.
Then it mentions, I take a short walk, even just a quick one.
Yes. So important. Getting a bit of movement, some fresh air if possible. It seems small, but it can make a real difference to your energy and mood.
Yeah, I find that helps clear my head.
It does. It boosts circulation, lifts your spirits, can even make you think a bit clearer afterwards. Good for the body, good for the brain.
Okay, and the last afternoon bit is, I study or work on my laptop. So this points to the afternoon being a time for more focused, concentrated effort.
Often, yeah. You've had that break, maybe some food, some movement. You've hopefully got a bit more energy again to tackle those tasks that, need more brain power or sustained attention. It fits the flow.
Makes sense. Okay, moving into the evening. Starts with, I come home and rest. This feels crucial, that deliberate shift.
It really is. That transition from the doing part of the day to winding down. And rest here isn't just like collapsing on the sofa.
Right, it's mental too.
Yeah, mental decompression, letting go of the day's stresses, the work stuff, and just switching modes, preparing for a different kind of evening activity or maybe inactivity.
Then I cook dinner with my family. This brings in the social side.
It highlights that routines aren't always solitary. They often involve connecting with others, sharing a meal, cooking together. That's a powerful bonding thing.
A chance to catch up, connect.
Exactly. It builds that sense of community, togetherness, whatever your family unit looks like.
And the final piece here, I enjoy a quiet evening, underscores that need for some personal downtime before bed.
Yeah, that buffer zone before sleep. Crucial for good sleep hygiene, actually.
So just relaxing, reading, maybe.
Could be anything calming, really. Reading, a hobby, listening to music, just quiet. It helps signal to your body and mind that the day is ending, time to prepare for sleep.
So looking back at how the source lays this all out, it's very simple, isn't it? Just clear, declarative sentences. I do this, then I do this.
It is very straightforward, very accessible. And that simplicity gives it a kind of rhythm, a natural seeming flow from waking up through activity to winding down.
It feels like a basic template.
Kind of, yeah. It mirrors our natural energy patterns throughout the day, Engage, focus, then recover and rest.
And I think that clarity, that structure itself, is a big part of why routines work for people. It cuts down on decision fatigue, maybe.
Absolutely. When you have these established patterns, you're not constantly spending mental energy figuring out, okay, what should I do now? It frees up that cognitive bandwidth.
It makes you feel more in control, less stressed, perhaps.
That's often the benefit, yeah.
Yeah.
Predictability can be very calming and efficient.
So, to wrap things up for you listening, we've walked through this example routine from the source, hitting those key points, starting the day intentionally, that morning ritual like coffee or tea, engaging with the world, but maybe mindfully.
Right. Then that essential midday break, incorporating some movement, focusing your energy in the afternoon.
And then consciously winding down in the evening, making time for connection, and also for that quiet, personal relaxation before sleep.
It all builds a picture, which leads to, I think, a really useful question for you to mull over.
Okay.
How do your daily routines stack up? What are the consistent pillars in your day, those non-negotiables? And maybe more importantly, what kind of impact are those routines, or maybe the lack of clear routines, having on how you feel, how you function, your overall well-being?
Thinking about whether the structure you have now actually serves the life you want?
Exactly. It's worth reflecting on. Does your routine support you, or is it time for a tweak? Something to consider.
Today we're tackling something really fundamental.
Yeah, the absolute bedrock.
Exactly. How we talk about our daily routines in English. And, you're here to get the insights fast, so that's what we'll do. A real focused look at those essential English verbs, the ones we use constantly, day in, day out.
We're pulling from a lesson that's all about talking about daily routines. Think of it as getting a solid grip on these core actions, the verbs that kind of structure how we even talk about our lives, from waking up to going back to sleep.
Right.
So our mission basically is to unpack these common verbs and show just how, powerful they are for speaking fluently.
Okay, let's dive right in. The ones that kick off the day. First up, wake up. That moment, when sleep stops, consciousness flickers back on.
Right.
But how is that different from the next one, get up?
Good question. That's actually a really key difference. So wake up is purely about your state, right? You stop sleeping. It's biological. Get up is the action, moving from lying down in bed to, sitting up or actually standing.
I see. So you could wake up, but just lie there for a bit.
Exactly. You haven't gotten up yet. It's kind of neat how the language gives us two specific verbs for those slightly different moments in the morning.
Yeah, it is. Okay, then we often brush teeth. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Cleaning your teeth. Brush, toothpaste, done.
And take a shower. Washing yourself under the water spray. These things are so automatic, aren't they? But they really form the backbone of describing our mornings.
Absolutely. And just think how often you'd actually say these things. Telling someone your morning routine, explaining what you do before you leave the house.
Right.
These aren't like obscure words. They're totally central. It kind of shows how mastering these basic building blocks is key for efficiency.
Definitely. Okay, next is eat breakfast. The first meal, fuel for the day.
Yep.
Then go to schoolwork, just heading out to wherever you need to be for education or your job.
And notice how that one phrase, go to, plus the destination, covers two really common but different life paths.
Yeah, school or work. Very economical use of language.
It is. And what's interesting there is just the implied purpose, the direction you get from just saying go to school or go to work. It says a lot with very few words. Makes you wonder if there are subtle differences in how people in different English-speaking places talk about that journey,
That's a really interesting point. And then later in the day, we usually come back home.
The return trip.
Back to your place. There's a sense of arrival there, usually comfort too.
Definitely.
And in this first batch, we also had take a nap.
Yes, the nap.
That little bit of sleep, usually midday, right?
Yeah.
A quick recharge.
Yeah, and what's interesting about take a nap is how it's more specific than just saying sleep. It suggests, it's shorter and it's outside your main nighttime sleep.
Cool.
And the verb itself, take, we take a nap, but we go to sleep. It's subtle, but it's a real difference in how we phrase it.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Let's move to the next group then. We have do homework.
Right.
For anyone studying, that's the schoolwork you do outside of class time.
Pretty essential verb for a big chunk of the population.
And then there's watch TV. Just viewing programs on television.
Again, super common activities, right? Do homework has that sense of like responsibility, learning, whereas watch TV usually feels more like relaxing, entertainment maybe. It's kind of amazing how these simple verbs capture such big chunks of our daily life. And you could even think like how that's changing. Maybe now it's watch streaming or something, but the core verb watch is still there.
Good point. And then as the day wraps up, we eventually go to sleep.
Final act.
Starting to sleep, yeah. Making that switch from being awake to resting.
So we've kind of come full circle, haven't we?
We have, from wake up right around to go to sleep, covered the whole conscious part of the day.
And what strikes me is how these verbs, which often seem so basic, just 2 or 3 words sometimes, they can paint such a complete picture of a standard day. From the moment your eyes open till they close again, these actions are the framework.
Right.
And if you connect that back to, communicating well in English, getting comfortable with these verbs gives you this incredibly efficient way to just describe your life.
So let's just run through them one more time quickly.
Good idea.
Wake up, get up, brush teeth, take a shower, eat breakfast, go to schoolwork, come back home, take a nap, do homework, watch TV, and go to sleep.
That's the core list from our source.
It might seem like a really simple list, but like you said, and like the source material points out, they're actually incredibly powerful tools for fluent communication.
Absolutely. And, thinking about getting knowledge quickly, which you mentioned at the start.
Yeah.
This set of verbs is a perfect example of like high-yield learning. Master these, get comfortable with them, and boom, you can suddenly talk about a huge chunk of your everyday experience in English.
It's direct, it's practical.
Immediately useful.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe as you, the listener, go through your day today or tomorrow, just notice how often you do these things.
Yeah.
And maybe think about how easily you can now name them in English. Understanding these fundamentals isn't just about memorizing words, is it?
Not at all.
It's like getting a key that opens up more complex, talks about your routines, your schedule, your whole day, really.
Yeah, it builds that foundation. And that actually brings up maybe a final thought to leave people with.
Okay.
How might the specific ways we use these verbs, like the little words we add, the prepositions or adverbs, how might those tiny variations actually show subtle cultural differences? Differences in how we see and talk about our daily routines across the English-speaking world.
That's interesting. Like, do some cultures emphasize the rush more when they go to work?
Exactly. Or how is taking a nap viewed? Things like that. It's definitely something rich to think about as you keep exploring the language. Today we're looking at, a really interesting source that takes a wonderfully straightforward approach to describing daily routines.
That's right. It's something we all do, talk about our day. And our mission here really is to get a handle on how using simple sentence structures can actually give you a surprisingly complete and very clear picture of your daily activities.
Okay.
So we're digging into this short piece about routines in English, focusing, on the sentence style.
Right, the style itself. Okay, let's dive right in then. The source gives this great example. It's very natural sounding. It goes something like, I wake up at 7 a.m.
Okay.
I brush my teeth, take a shower, and eat a quick breakfast.
Right, simple steps.
Then I go to work by bus. I come back in the evening, relax, and watch a bit of TV. Before bed, I read a book or check my phone. I sleep by 11 p.m.
Yeah. What hits you straight away is just how simple it is, isn't it?
Totally.
Each little action, each bit of the day, it gets its own short, direct sentence.
Exactly. That seems to be the main thing. These short, connected sentences. It feels, like a sequence of moments.
Yeah, easy to process moments. And this choice, it has a really interesting effect, actually, on how we take it in. It creates this natural rhythm.
Right.
Makes the whole description super easy to follow. There aren't any, complicated grammar bits or long sentences you get tangled up in.
No, none of that.
It's just one clear step, then the next. Think of it like building with Lego bricks.
Okay, yeah.
Each short sentence is one brick, easy to handle.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't build the most elaborate thing with just single bricks, but what you do build is clear, stable, easy to see.
That's a good analogy. You really get a sense of the day just sort of unfolding very accessibly. And what's striking, I think, is that even though each sentence is so simple on its own, put them together and you get a really full picture, a comprehensive snapshot of a whole day from waking up right through to sleep. All the main stuff is in there.
Yeah, imagine trying to cram all that into one massive
Oh,
sentence.
no, it'd be tough to follow. A real mental workout.
Exactly. And that's a great point. If you look at communication more broadly, this shows you don't always need super complex language to get a lot across effectively.
Right.
Sometimes just being clear and simple, those are your best tools. This string of short sentences, it lets you visualize the routine easily, grasp the flow. Our brains kind of like information in chunks, right?
Yeah, manageable pieces.
And short sentences do that. They mirror how we process things, allowing for quicker understanding, a better feel for the overall message, and that applies way beyond just talking about your day.
Absolutely. It doesn't feel overwhelming at all. It feels, well, manageable.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings us to something practical for you, the listener. The source actually says, quite directly, now you try to speak your routine out loud.
Yeah, which raises a pretty interesting question. What actually happens when you take this pattern and apply it to your own life?
Right.
Speaking your own routine out loud, using these short, connected sentences, it can be a surprisingly useful exercise.
How so?
Well, it kind of forces you to break down your day into its basic bits
Okay.
and then say them clearly, step by step.
Exactly. It's about taking this abstract idea and making it personal. I sometimes find myself just rambling when someone asks what I did today.
We all do.
This simple structure feels like it could really help with clarity. Like, by actually saying your own routine like this, you can feel how well it works.
Definitely. Could this maybe work for giving instructions too? Like assembling furniture or following a recipe, breaking it down.
Well, that's a great connection. Yeah, step by step.
But what jumps out at you when you think about your own routine described this way? Does it feel natural?
I'd have to try it properly.
Or are there any surprises in how it sounds when you strip it down like that? To just these simple statements. Notice that subject-verb-object structure in most of them.
Yeah, it's very direct.
Very direct. It creates that clarity. It's like a fundamental building block for clear communication in English, really.
Okay, so let's just sort of pull this together. We've looked at how using these short connected sentences, like in the example, I wake up at 7 a.m., I brush my teeth, can be a super effective way to describe your daily routine. Clearly, naturally.
Right. Even though each sentence is simple, the sequence works. It builds that complete, easy-to-follow picture of a whole day.
Yep, the whole day mapped out simply.
And this leads us to maybe a final thought for you to chew on.
Okay.
Think about how this approach structuring descriptions by breaking info down into simple connected parts. How could that apply elsewhere in your communication?
Interesting.
Could you use it maybe to explain a complex project at work? Break it down into core actions.
Yeah, I could see that.
Or maybe describing a sequence of events to a friend so it's instantly understandable.
Right, avoiding the rant.
Exactly. So consider how making information more accessible using these simple structures could actually make your communication even more engaging and just easier for others to grasp. Makes you think, doesn't it?
Today, we're getting into something we all have but maybe don't talk about much, our daily routines. We've got some interesting source material here, specifically focusing on asking about routines to, spark better conversations.
Yeah, it's more than just small talk, isn't it?
Exactly. So the mission today is to equip you with a few simple but pretty effective questions to understand how people structure their day, going beyond that usual surface stuff.
It's fascinating, really, how much you can learn just from the sort of framework of someone's day.
Yeah.
And like you said, these questions, they're not just filler. They can genuinely open doors to understanding someone's priorities, their work style.
Even how they recharge.
Right. It helps us move past assumptions, and just be genuinely curious about how others live their lives day to day.
Okay, so let's unpack that first question the source brings up. What's your morning routine like? Sounds basic, maybe, but the answer can tell you quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely. What's really interesting is how that morning routine can be like a keystone habit. That first sequence of things you do often sets the tone for everything else, doesn't it?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So someone mentioning, say, meditation or a quick workout first thing, that might signal they're focusing on, proactive well-being.
Right, versus someone else who might say...
They dive straight into emails.
Right.
Which could suggest, maybe, their priority is hitting tasks right away, reacting to external demands.
It's like a little window into how they manage their energy, their focus for the whole day.
Exactly. It's not just what they do, but the order, the choice.
Okay, interesting. Now, the second question sort of pushes against the typical workday idea. Do you usually work at night? This feels especially relevant now with work being more flexible for lots of people.
Yeah, this one really opens up that whole conversation about chronotypes. Whether you're naturally a morning person or a night owl.
Right.
Someone working late might just be hitting their peak focus time when things are quieter.
Or it could be practical reasons too, right? Like global teams or
personal circumstances, yeah. Maybe childcare, other commitments that shift their best working hours.
Yeah.
It forces us to think beyond that standard 9-to-5 box. Productivity looks different for everyone.
It really does. Those productive hours are definitely not one size fits all. Okay, the third question moves towards the end of the day. How do you relax after a busy day? This one feels very relatable. We all have those days where you just need to switch off, don't we?
Mm-hmm. And this gets into that really crucial area of like stress management and self-care. What someone does to relax isn't just a hobby.
It's often a strategy.
Exactly. A vital strategy for keeping things balanced mentally and emotionally. Do they need quiet time with a book?
Or maybe something physical, like going for a run.
Or connecting with friends, family? The answer gives you insight into their coping mechanisms, what actually restores them.
And, you might even get some ideas for yourself.
Totally. You might hear something and think, oh, I should try that.
Definitely. Okay, and the last question touches on fitness and time management. Do you exercise in the morning or evening? Again, seems simple on the surface.
But if you link it back to, the body's natural rhythms we were talking about, morning exercise might tap into higher energy for some.
Well, evening could be about releasing stress.
Yeah, kind of shaking off the workday. It also says something about how they prioritize health within their schedule.
Right.
Is it a get it done first thing?
Before the day gets crazy.
Or is it more of a transition, a way to shift gears out of work mode? Each choice reflects a different way they weave well-being into the fabric of their day.
So really, like the source material stresses, these aren't just random questions to fill silence.
No, not at all.
They're invitations, really, to have more meaningful conversations, as the source puts it, with friends, colleagues, anyone.
Precisely. These kinds of questions prompt more than a one-word answer, don't they? They create space for actual connection.
Yeah, you're showing you're interested in the texture of their life, not just the headlines.
Right. It builds empathy. Yeah. And you often find those, surprising bits of common ground, things that connect you.
Okay, so just to recap those 4 key questions from our source material. What's your morning routine like? Do you usually work at night?
Yeah.
How do you relax after a busy day?
Crucial one.
And do you exercise in the morning or evening?
And the real value here, the power, is how these questions can lift us out of those sort of automatic how are you exchanges.
Yeah, the superficial stuff.
And into a genuinely deeper understanding of the daily rhythms that shape people's lives, which ultimately helps build stronger, more insightful connections.
So here's something maybe to think about, a final thought for you listening. Consider how just asking one of these questions might change the whole dynamic of your next chat. Instead of just catching up, you could be opening a door to understanding someone's values, maybe their coping strategies, what actually grounds them day to day.
Yeah, that little bit of curiosity.
It could reveal some really unexpected common ground, maybe even make you think a bit about your own patterns. What if understanding those small daily micro routines is actually key to a bigger macro understanding of connection itself, something to mull over?
That wraps up episode 35, talking about daily routines in English. Today, you learned daily routine vocabulary, how to speak naturally about your day, how to ask others about their routines, and how to sound human, not robotic. In our next episode, we'll go even deeper. How to talk about your hobbies and free time in English. Until then, speak often, live fully, and keep learning with SpeakNest English Podcast Zone.